Any seconder? Oh, you want a second? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues. My name is Honorable Dennis Idahosa. I represent Ovia Federal Constituency. I rise to second the motion ably moved by my senior brother, Honorable Sergi Sogu. I hereby second.
Honorable Kuyen. It's already been seconded. Okay, go ahead.
Come and use this one.
God bless you.
Your APC ticket is gone.
APC is gone now. From PDP. Right, Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues, my name remains Ademori Aliukuye. I represent Shomolu Federal Constituency. I'm from Lagos State, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the motion moved by my colleague, Honorable Sergi Sogu, I stand to oppose it because it is superfluous, it is unnecessary, it's a threat to our security. Mr. Speaker, the Nigerian Army have a Wikipedia page that is on Google, that if we Google it right now, it will tell us all the information that is asking for. As we're talking right now, the World Bank even gave an information on it. Today, Nigerian Army personnel, including the paramilitary, stands at 223,000. The fourth, 223,000. The fourth largest in the whole of the continent, improving from 2016 up to this date, sir. We were in the 17th position before. Today, we are fourth in Africa. And this information that is asking for, all he needs to do is go to their Wikipedia, go to their page. You will see all the recruitments that have been done so far. So, I don't see why we should come here and start, exposing this kind of thing. It's almost an embarrassment to the House.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Isiaka.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Ibrahim Ayokunle Isiaka, for Iwe for Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I am happy that even the Chair Army is here on the floor. And the motion moved by Honorable Sergius, he still referred the motion to the committee. It's not to the public. And not that the Chief of Army Staff is summoned by the House to come and explain in public, but to the committee, no matter how sensitive it is. Mr. Speaker, I do not see it being out of place for either a member of the committee or National Assembly member to seek for information. So if it's in the public space, as enunciated by my honorable brother, which means it's nothing hidden. So if the intention and what this motion is trying to cure is that, okay, the committee is not oblivious of what is happening there, and they want to get first-hand information. Mr. Speaker, it's not too bad for us to grant the request, the prayer of that motion, and and cede it to the committee. And then the committee will be able to handle it the more professional way it should be handled. In this wise, Mr. Speaker, I'm in support that we allow the motion to pass. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think the issue is very narrow and very straightforward. I think what Honorable Sages is asking for, or what he believes, is that we don't know the numbers. We don't have the figures as far as the Nigerian Army is concerned. And what Honorable Kuye is saying is that that is not so, that we have the numbers and we have the figures. And those numbers and those figures are there for everybody to see. So if we don't have the numbers and we don't have the figures, Honorable Sages is quite right to inquire and ask. But if we have it, then unfortunately that issue is redundant. He seeks a very important he asks a very important question, but it appears that from Honorable Kuye's submission, that question has already been asked and answered and is in the public domain. Now the problem I have, if you send it to, there are two things here. We don't want the public to think we don't know these things when we are supposed to know, number one. Number two, you don't want to overburden the committee with all the work they already have when the thing is even already clear. The answers are already clear. So those are the two issues for me. But maybe it is not the case, because I see Honorable Sages raising his hand. Maybe he has something different to add. Honorable Sages.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity again. The issue is not just about the numbers. It's just an item in this motion. Money was spent on this recruitment. We have Committee on Federal Character. We can as well go to Wikipedia and check the numerical strength of any agency. But we still have a committee that will do their work. It's like also running our budget on Wikipedia. I have information that I might not want to discuss on the floor of the House that the committee is best suited to handle. That is why we have a committee on army. So if it's referred to the committee, they will ask those questions. I have been to a recruitment camp in Kano, Fagori Forest, where they recruited about 10,000 people. And that was the second recruitment in that year. And they told us they are going to move it to 3 that do recruitment 3 times in a year. That will be churning up about 30,000. It doesn't match the strength. So unless we agree here now that there's no need to do any committee work, Wikipedia should be doing our work for us. That's fine. I don't want to say something. There is something that I know about somebody's age that was written somewhere on Wikipedia. But somebody went again somewhere else and got a different thing. So should we run our house on Wikipedia when we have committees set up with seasoned members with requisite experience in those fields to interrogate and get answers? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Kuye, then Honorable Soro, and I'm going to have the Chairman Army speak to this as well. But I don't know that the issue was about federal character. Well, although Honorable Seju said the strength, the numerical strength is just an item. What were the other issues?
Except probably Honorable Sagios is changing his prayers. Because what he wrote here was that he wants to know the numerical strength of the Nigerian, and it is there. We are supposed to be educating the public, not us. And every year, as the numbers are increasing, it's on their website. Every year, from 2016 to 2017, and how the ratings was going on, is there on their Wikipedia, is there on the Nigerian Army website. We are supposed to be educating, not on this platform, using it to the Nigerian, the committee on Nigerian Army. They are here. The chairman is there. You can ask him.
Bill Vivers,
All these things.
Honorable Mansour, then Honorable Fred.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Simon Masumano Mr. Speaker, I wish to differ with the submission made by my brother, Barrister Kuye. The purpose of this motion, as spelled in the other paper, is not only to establish the total number of the Nigerian Army personnel that we have. When you refer to the last paragraph in this motion, the part of this motion is interrogating why Nigeria is being left behind in the ranking order of global firepower, despite the budgetary appropriations that this National Assembly is dishing out to the military year in, year out. So I want to support the submission made by Honorable Isiaka to the effect that there is the need for the Chief of Army Staff to cause appearance before the House Committee on Army, not before the full House, to state why this part, despite this financial provision being made by the National Assembly and this being released by the federal government, but we are still lagging behind in this global firepower. We need to encourage the Army to look at how they can position themselves, to compete within the Committee of Nations. Thank you.
But the main thrust of the motion, in fact, the title, forget the prayer, the title says, a motion on need to ascertain the total number of personnel trained and recruited by the Nigerian Army from 2017 to 2021 and the current numerical strength of the Nigerian Army. That's the motion, that's the top title, and that's the prayer. So what we need to ascertain is that, do we really have a number? Because it's a legitimate question. But the question raised by is that it's asked and answered. And Honorable Sage is also right that how reliable is Wikipedia? How reliable is Wikipedia? But I'll honestly allow the chairman to wrap it up. Honorable Fred. Okay.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues. Gbedi Yetimne Frederick is my name. I represent Sagbama Keremo Federal Constituency. As I'm from Bayelsa State. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, we are vested with the responsibility of investigation. And this motion is intended to investigate recruitment exercise, not from when the Nigerian Army was established, but a specific period from between 2017 to 2021 recruitment. And Mr. Speaker, we are also vested with the responsibility of appropriation. And this motion is asking for the number of officers that were recruited, maybe match it with the appropriation, funds appropriated by the National Assembly, and see whether the funds were judiciously expended in the recruitment exercise. And this is our responsibility, Mr. Speaker. And of course, if you can go to Google and see what the Nigerian Army is doing, that is put in their website, then of course you know that we have the official responsibility to know what any arm of government, including the ministry and parastatal, is doing. And this motion is in exercise of our constitutionally mandated responsibility. And I don't think that that responsibility can be taken off us by any support or opposition to a motion that is validly presented before this House. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge that in as much as we are expending money, we need to know how justifiably the monies were expended to recruit men of the Nigerian Army within this period. And Mr. Speaker, this motion may propel other similar motions to come, so that we'll be able to justify as a nation how our appropriations were judiciously expended in the exercises for which that the appropriation were considered. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge you and urge members of this assembly to allow this motion be passed. Mr. Speaker, I also want to agree with you to the extent that this House can as well mandate an ad hoc committee to take this responsibility, so that maybe all the issues that will be canvassed and the report that is going to come will come from an ad hoc committee that may be allowed to take a fresh look at these issues. Because I agree that the committee that is vested with responsibility oversights regularly the Nigerian Army. Maybe some fresh minds need to also look at the responses that will come. And that is to the extent where, Mr. Speaker, I would like to agree with you that this House can as well mandate an ad hoc committee to carry out this assignment and report back to this House, so that the oversighting committee will also take some information from the reports that will be presented by that ad hoc committee and match with their own that have been carrying out for this about 3 years that the committee has oversighted the Nigerian Army. And that is my urge to Mr. Speaker. I think this motion is important. I also want to use the opportunity to say an ad hoc committee can be mandated to carry out this responsibility. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and honorable colleagues.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, I'm a Jaha Babao, as usual. Chibok Damboa Goza Federal Constituency is where I represent. Mr. Speaker, let me start by congratulating the mover of this motion for bringing in this issue of numerical strength, the number of recruited and the number of trained, particularly of the Nigerian Army. Mr. Speaker, I would like us to bear at the back of our mind that is the same this chamber in 2004 legislated and passed into law contributory pension scheme. And part of the caveat as far as contributory pension scheme is concerned is to provide group life insurance cover for each and every employee of government on one hand, and every employee working in a private sector on the other hand, Army inclusive. The most important segment of the civil service, or the most important segment of the public service that requires extensive and qualified insurance cover, particularly that has to do with life, is the Nigerian Army and other related agents of coercion. So as I'm talking to you, because of lack of record of the Nigerian Army, no insurance company is happy to pick a business of life insurance coverage with the Nigerian Army. Because as part of the requirement of the law, if there is no premium, there is no cover. And a premium can only be calculated if and only if you know the numerical strength, the salary package, annual emolument of each and every employee. As part of the Contributory Pension Scheme Act, individual Army officer is entitled to an insurance cover equals to 3 times annual emolument of that particular officer. So, sir, we are just operating without data. There is no figure for an organization to rely in order to help this agency. Another thing, I want to make a correction with regard to the title of the motion. Instead of trained and recruited, it should be recruited and trained. Because you cannot train somebody without recruiting that particular person. What I'm trying to say in a nutshell, if we go by this shows there are people that have not been recruited by Nigerian Army but have been trained. And one can qualify that by having illegal checkpoints across the country. So, sir, as rightly suggested by my senior colleague from Rivers, Bayelsa, there is a need for a special ad hoc committee. I'm a member of Army Committee. A special ad hoc committee without fear of any contradiction to sit down and identify the numerical strength of the Nigerian Army alone. The other time I raised issue that if we look at what we have been appropriated for Nigerian Army alone since 2020 to date, which is exactly 3 years, in 2020, 420 billion, 406 were for recurrent expenditure. In 2021, it was 460 billion. Only 37 were for recurrent expenditure, for capital expenditure, the remaining were recurrent expenditure. Currently, 571 billion, less than 10% is for capital expenditure. So substantial monies spent or released for the Nigerian Army are being spent purportedly on the Nigerian Army. So we need the number so that we can justify before Allah that we are worshiping and before people we are representing. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so your position is that we don't know the numerical strength. That's bottom line your position.
Point of order, sir.
Chair. Point of order.
Point of order, yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While what we are discussing is very, very important, I think the rules of the House should come before any other thing. The man that just finished speaking is my neighbor here. He has abandoned his seat. He don't come here. And he's there speaking, Mr. Speaker. I think it is not proper. Mr. Speaker, directly let him come.
I agree with you. Please, he's alone there. Please go and meet your neighbor. This is correct. Honorable Shetima, what did you want to add before I wrap up with the German Army?
Yes, my own is not working now. Mr. Speaker, sir, honorable colleagues, Lawan Shetima Ali is my name, speaking for Bursari, Kedem Unisari Penal Constituency and from Yobe State, sir. While concurring my position with the mover of this motion, Mr. Speaker, and the contribution being advanced by my colleagues so far, the issue of army in this country is not limited to issue of recruitment and training. What we are having now, Mr. Speaker, sir, the issue of how much are they maintaining those being recruited and trained at the battlefield and where they are working. Issue of their allowances, when money was being budgeted for, appropriated for in the House, are they properly applied or executed at their own end? This is one thing we should know. Because in most cases, you will be hearing a lot of complaints over personnel not being paid as and when due their legal allowances while they are fighting battles, particularly in the northeast, the northwest, and north central and other part of the country. So, Mr. Speaker, secondly, the issue of setting up ad hoc committee for every items or motion is not in line. This particular House that mandated standing committees in respect of all activities to be led either ministry or agencies or generally MDS in the government. But I wonder why, without asking the standing committee in the House to bring any reports in respect of either recruitment or training, they have never been asked to do so. First, let's ask the committee to furnish this House at a particular time. What is the number of recruitment being made by the military and training being, undertaken by the military or any other security outfit? But for us to always jump to the conclusion of setting up committee, I see no reason why. So they are being redundant as committee in the House. So we should allow the committee first and foremost to do their legislative work. If we are not satisfied, if their committee the report is not being accepted by the House, then the ad hoc committee should come in. But for every activity with abandoning the main committee or the standing committee in the House, we will continue always setting up ad hoc committee for an issue that not necessarily to be done by ad hoc committee. I see no reason to do that. Then, thirdly, Mr. Speaker, sir, after we get the number or strength of the military, in addition, we should go further, including the police, the military, the SS. We need more personnel for this country presently, as every part of this country is boiling with security issue. And the complaint is always they are understaffed. Wherever you go, if there is attack, you will hardly get enough personnel to pursue those attackers. So this is the kind of thing we should find out first. So after getting the strength, the numerical strength of all the security aspects, let us now give them, even if it means to give supplementary budget, we should open up recruitment generally for Nigerians who are ready to sacrifice for this country, because the country is boiling, Mr. Speaker. I always say it in this chamber. We need more hands. Even if we have the weapons, if you don't have the personnel to operate such weapons, you will hardly succeed. This country presently is far more than the conventional battle we know. So, Mr. Speaker, we need more hands. Even if we are going to give them extra mile to, recruit more personnel, even to double with the number of proposed recruitment for this year, we should do that, Mr. Speaker. We need more army. We need more police. Our graduated students are going around the street without getting any job. They are even ready to serve this country at whatever capacity. So we should give them a chance to do that, Mr. Speaker. So my opinion is there is no need for ad hoc committee. Let the chairman army stand up and, speak, and later on mandate the committee. Let them do their legislative work, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Chairman.
Honorable Speaker, my honorable colleagues, my name is Abrazak Saad Namdas. I represent the people of Ganye, Jada, Tongo, Belwa. I am from Adamawa State. Mr. Speaker, first I want to say that I'm lucky that I'm around so that I can respond very well to some of the issues that have been raised here. Both the mover of the motion and some of those who contribute, members of Army Committee. It would be unfortunate to say that as a chairman of Army in this house, that we don't know the number. Recruits, just last week Saturday, I was there in the depot. So it could go added to the number that we have. And it's also not wrong if he wants to have us to get the detailed number. Because even in the civil service, where people know the number of civil servants, you still find when they are going to pay salaries, they will say, okay, let us do some kind of table payment to ascertain the number of people that are on, because there are fake people coming around. So if there is a call for us to know the number and they need it from the committee, Mr. Speaker, we are going to oblige that. I want to tell you on record that the Deputy Speaker is here and is alive here, sir. This committee is one of the committees that has never, all the motions that have been referred to this committee, we have not only dealt on this committee, but we have laid the reports on to the House, and the Deputy Speaker is here. So I would be surprised, Mr. Speaker, that if only what we are looking for in this House is just to get the ideal number, the exact number of people that have been recruited and trained, that the Committee on Army cannot afford to handle that it has to be an ad hoc committee, then it's just like you are passing the vote of no committee. It's unfortunate that mere records. I don't even need to ask the Chief of Army Staff to come here for me to get the record of the personnel. All I need is to talk to the Chief of Administration to know. So if an ad hoc committee will be set up by the House merely to get just the figure, and a committee cannot handle it, Mr. Speaker, there's a problem with us in this House. And I want to state, Mr. Speaker, there was a time a motion was raised on the floor here where an ad hoc committee was meant to determine the number of equipments that were procured by the Army. Mr. Speaker, instead of allowing the Army Committee to handle it, it was an ad hoc committee. As I can speak to you from a position of strength, that committee has not laid the report before the House. And somebody should say that and whether I have done it or not. So I think we should not be a little bit very sentimental on some of these issues. We are agreed that this is an investigator. We will do it. And I appreciate that. That's nothing wrong, sir. We can get the numbers. But sometimes we refuse to bandy the number because of security challenges. Sometimes some of those that we are, the actors that are busy dealing with us, they also use the numbers against us. But Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, the motion is not wrong. I will work as a committee and get a detailed report. But if it is the preferred decision of the House that it should be handled by the ad hoc committee, Mr. Speaker, this is the responsibility that is on your table. Whatever you say, we are going to accept it, Mr. Speaker. But I can tell you, we know the number of the personnel in the army, but there are additions every time. Mr. Speaker, each year, we have never recruited more than 5,000 personnel, recruits, because even the facilities in the depot cannot handle beyond 5,000. We had even the cost. We spoke to the army that why can't we even decentralize the recruitment exercise so that some can be done in other zones so that we can take more. And we are on the verge of doing that, Mr. Speaker, because we had an argument, we presented our case that since the establishment of Nigerian Army from colonial time till today, it is in the depots area that recruitment exercise is taking place. So that somebody from Lagos can only be recruited in Kaduna. Somebody in Sokoto can only come to Kaduna. So why can't we decentralize this recruitment exercise and have about 3 areas so that the space should be open, the facility should be there, so that there will be additional and free to do that. So, Mr. Speaker, I think if it is the numbers, we are going to avail it to the committee. Whatever you rule, Mr. Speaker, we are ready to accept it. I so much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you so much.
To take your work to an ad hoc committee anyway. That was not going to happen. I mean, you are doing a good job. But what is important is, so is it your position? And I think it's important we clarify this before the press run away with the idea that even that the House does not know the numerical strength of the army. I think it's very important. I don't want us to, wait, your position is that we know it, but that we need an update from the last recruitment. We need to update the numbers. I think it's very, very clear, because it will not be good for the public to say that the House does not know how many, the stronghold or the numerical strength of the Nigerian Army. That will be an indictment of the House. We do know it, but we need to update from the last recruitment. So if we can rephrase that, or the prayer, amend it to reflect that. Somebody needs to do that very quickly. So maybe you can look at the prayer and amend it.
Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues, my name is Abdulrazak Saad Namdas. I represent Ganye Jada Tongoma Ibelwa. I am from Adamawa State. By the special grace of God and you, Mr. Speaker, I am the Chairman, House Committee on Army. Mr. Speaker, I would like to add that we should get, in addition to the number of recruits that have been graduated from the Army recruitment centers, I think we should come up with the correct figure, considering the number of updated figures of the personnel of the Nigerian Army, considering the fact that every 6 months we have been adding recruiting close to 5 or 4,000 recruits in the Nigerian Army.
Yeah, that's a good amendment. It's important to get an updated figure, like Honorable Seju's motion says, because it is based on that figure that we can, a lot of things are based on the exact numbers and the data. Any seconder, Honorable Shetima?
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I'm Lawal Shetima Ali, representing Bursariga Eden Municipal Constituency. I rise to second the motion ably moved by the Army Chairman. I so second, sir.
Those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Those against, say nay. Ayes have it. Motion as amended, please say aye. Those against, say nay. Ayes have it. The 10th order of the day is consideration of a bill for an act to establish the Nigerian Maritime Trust Fund for the purpose of training, provision of security equipment and related facilities, enhance the skills of personnel of the Nigerian Navy, and for related matters. Honorable members will recall that the bill was committed to the Committee of the Whole on Thursday, 14th April 2022. The leader will move for its consideration. Leader of the House.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Honorable members, I rise to move that the House get set for the consideration of reports as captured on Order 10 and 11. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I so move.
Deputy Leader.
Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, Comrade Peter Ohiozuje Akpata MNI. Mr. Speaker, I second the motion for the consideration of the report. I so second, Mr. Speaker.
Those in support of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. Consideration of a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of Federal University of Environment Technology, Koroma, Tai, Ogoni, and for related matters. Other members will recall that the bill was committed to the Committee of the Whole on Thursday, 14th April 2022. The leader will move for its consideration.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I remain Ado Dogwa. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I represent the good people of Chujumada Dogwa Federal Constituency. I rise as directed by the Honorable Speaker to move that the House do consider a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of Federal University of Environmental Technology, Koroma, Sakpenwa, Tai Ogoni, and for related matters, HB 1219 for consideration. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I so move.
Any Deputy Leader, please second.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, Comrade Peter Ohiozuje Akpata MNI. Mr. Speaker, I second the motion for the consideration of the report as ably moved by the Leader of the House. I so second, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, I was going to suspend consideration of report until the Deputy Speaker walked in, so we'll be taking it. If anybody can reach Honourable Gagdi, because he had a matter which he pleaded that we take, and I told him we were not going to take it because I have to run somewhere. But now that the Deputy Speaker is here, his report is being taken. If anybody can reach him, he should find his way to the chambers to come and defend his report. House Leader, please move that the House, well, those in support of the motion, please say aye. Those against, say nay. Ayes have it. The House resolved to the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Femi Bajabia Mila, Garkuan Yaouni, and the Speaker of the Ninth House of Representatives. My respected colleagues, I therefore move that this Honorable House will move to the Committee of the Whole to consider report. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I so move.
Before I put the question, I have an announcement for the conference Harmonization Committee on the Federal Colleges of Education Repeal and Enactment Bill 2022. Honorable members may recall that on April 5, 2022, the House passed the Federal Colleges of Education Repeal and Enactment Bill, and same was passed by the Senate with some differences. The following members are nominated as conferees to resolve the areas of differences in the bill. Honorable Aminu Suleiman, Chairman. Honorable Fatu Mohammed. Honorable Robert Yo, Honorable Benjamin Kalu, Honorable Usman Zana, Honorable Isiaka Ibrahim. So those are the names of the people for the conference committee. Yes. And I'll announce once more, I'll repeat the delegation that will be going to Akwa Ibom for the condolence and burial ceremony and burial of Honorable Basi Ekpeyong. Honorable Sada Soli will be the chairman, Barrister Kuye, Prince Akiremi, Honorable Kingsley Uju, Honorable Chief Thomas Ereitobi. Thank you. Those in support that the House is up to the committee of the whole, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Committee of the whole. See you all on Tuesday.
Honorable Kuye, please.
Respected colleagues, the first bill to be considered is for an act to establish the Nigerian Maritime Trust Fund for the purpose of training, provisions of security equipment, and for related matters. This facility enhance, the skill of personnel of the Nigerian Navy and for related matters. And I invite the leader to give the senior suit of the bill.
Honorable Sajos, can you go back to your seat, please? Let me have it. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, my respected colleagues. Mr. Chairman, this is just a straightforward report, sir. It is for the House to consider simply deleting this component of the bill, that the sources of the trust fund shall consist of an amount consisting 1% of the total revenue accruing to the Federation account. Mr. Speaker, the report stands at this point, and I think it's worth doing that the House do consider the deletion, to delete this aspect of the bill. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, honorable members, I so submit.
Thank you. Colleagues, like he did explain, this is just one clause for consideration. Reason being that the bill has already gone to the President for assent, And this is the only provision that has made the president not to sign the bill. So we are going to delete this to allow the president assent to the bill so they can have effect of it. Yep.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. In addition to that, there's already in existence, and I brought it to the notice of the Speaker, I brought it to the notice of my brother, Honorable Yusuf, that there's already a maritime trust fund in existence. And NIMASA actually pays a certain amount of money into this maritime trust fund. So I'm just wondering, can we have 2 maritime trust funds? I spoke to him to change the name because there's already such a fund in existence. If this is passed, I mean, how is that going to work? You can't really have two fonts bearing the same name. That's my, and I wish you were here because I already spoke to him, and I already spoke to Mr. Speaker before, and I went out again to tell him, it's just the name. How can you have 2 trust funds, the same?
I don't know whether the bill was sent to Maritime, but it was sent to Minister of Finance. This particular comment is for deletion is coming from Minister of Finance or Minister of Finance comment.
Sir, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I think the only point of discrepancy between what she is talking about and what we have before the House is that this one specifically has to do with Navy as an arm of the military of Nigeria. And that one is to do with maybe wider maritime institutions. These are 2 separate things, Mr. Speaker. This one has to do with the military, the Navy component of Nigerian military. It cannot be ambiguous. And I think it's going to be for the good of our security and for the good of the Navy as an institution. Other provision that has to do with general maritime is what she was talking about. There is no ambiguity here, and there is no collision or contradiction of purpose. Mr. Chairman, honorable members, I want to respectfully plead with members to let us have this thing deleted so that Mr. President can be comfortable to assent to this bill, which at the end will even impact on the security effectiveness of our military. Thank you.
Well, Queen of the House, I will beg that you allow us to make progress.
Please take your seat and keep quiet when you get there. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I hope the APC has not concluded submission of senatorial candidate list to the INEC. I have an issue from the Daura zone. I have an observation.
No, Mr. Chairman. I think, this is a very serious house. We need to understand things and do it the right way. I'm not talking about the objectives and the goals of this legislation. Definitely, as Nigerians, we want the best for our society in all sectors, most especially security. My point is, does it really make human sense to have 2 funds? I'm not talking about the objectives. I support this bill 110%. All I'm saying is, can you really have the same bill, the same fund with the same name, but you're just saying, well, it takes care of different things? Why can't the name be changed? That's all. I'm not talking about the objectives of the fund. The objectives of the fund are very good. I'm just saying, why should you have 2 maritime trust funds? That is just my own.
Well, if we take the explanation by the leader, what you have is maritime trust fund. But what we have now here is Nigerian Maritime Trust Fund for the purpose of training. It is why specifically defining.
And in addition, sir, this is coming up, sir, Mr. Chairman.
It has to have this name maritime because part of the source of, excuse me, just a minute. Let me give you an example, maybe for an ecological fund. You have ecological fund defined, and then the funding defined as to how it's going to be done. But you again take ecological fund to fund other things. Like for instance, we have other bills that we have taken on this floor of the House, about 3 or 4 if I can recall, that has to do with ecological fund picking some percentage to fund those other areas. And I think this is something similar.
Trust fund. When you already have Maritime Trust Fund, why can't it be Navy Trust Fund for the purposes of XYZ? Why must it be Maritime Trust Fund that's already in existence?
Okay.
Yes, that's all I'm saying.
It's possibly we step it down.
Thank you.
For the chairman of the committee to come and explain further.
I think that would be more better.
Oh, yes.
So that we don't shave his head is in absence.
Oh, yes.
Information, sir. Information, sir.
Yes, sir.
The reason why I want to come in to provide certain information is, if you look at the objective of establishing this trust fund, maybe embedded in the trust fund Honorable Linda was trying to stress. So there is a need for whoever is going to make the comparison to look at the objective embedded in that particular trust fund bill, or law or act, and compare with this, so that we will not have multiplication of activity. So this is my information, sir. Thank you.
You still want to contribute?
Mr. Chairman, I think this is just a semantics issue here. But the whole trust fund, the key issue here is for the personnel of the Nigerian Navy, with respect to the maritime activities of the Nigerian Navy. I think the key word here is for the personnel of the Nigerian Navy, regardless, because the Nigerian Navy operates within our maritime environment. I think that's we should not miss the key word here. The whole trust fund is talking about is just to enhance the capabilities of the personnel of the Nigerian Navy,
which we all celebrated yesterday with her alongside at the ECOWAS Parliament. For the past 2 days, there has been significant improvement on the Nigerian maritime security, and we have been delisted now from the risk communities in that axis. So we appreciate the effort further being done to improve on the security. But maybe I will still beg that we step it down. If possible, we'll take it on Tuesday, so that this other small nitty-gritty can be sorted out between yourself and the chairman committee on Navy. So by Tuesday, we'll just come back and do it free. Thank you. Consideration step down by the leave of the House for further legislative input. Respected colleagues, the second bill to be considered for an act to provide for the establishment of Federal University of Environmental Technology, Koroma, Sepoma, Tai Ogoni, and for related matters, I now invite the leader to give the synopsis of the bill.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker and the Chairman of this session. Mr. Chairman, this is also another straightforward bill. It's a bill for an act to establish a bill for an act to establish a Federal University of Technology, of Environmental Technology, Koroma Sangpewa, Tai Ogoni, and for related matters, HB 1219. Mr. Chairman, it's an establishment bill, and I believe it's going to be for the good of our people around that federal constituency or that part of our country, Nigeria. And I therefore would like to plead to honorable members to have a favorable consideration for the establishment of this Federal University of Environmental Technology. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Leader. It's a concurrence bill coming from the Senate. Thank you. Clause 1. Clause 2. Which is clause 2, if I may ask you, so that we can carry it? No. I'm asking which is clause 2. Chairman rules. Guide us. So, in a nutshell, I want to redirect the bill back to your own office. The number is not correct, so you have to go and rework it and retool the entity. Thank you. Consideration, step down by the leave of the House for further legislative input. Leader, move that will revert to plenary to report progress.
Thank you, my Deputy Speaker and the Chairman of this session. Honorable members, I rise to move, as directed by the Chair, that this House do revert to plenary and report progress. Thank you.
Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and my colleagues. Comrade Peter Patterson, MNI. Mr. Chair, I rise to second the motion as ably moved by the Leader of the House. I so move. Support.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Against say nay. That's have it. Revert to plenary to report progress. Respected colleagues, the House and the Committee of the Whole considered the report on the bill for an act to establish Nigerian Maritime Trust Fund for the purpose of training, provisions of security equipment, and frontier matters and related facilities, enhance the skills of personnel of the Nigerian Navy and for related matters, step down consideration for further legislative action. Respected colleagues, the House and the Committee of the Whole considered the report of the bill for an act to establish Federal University of Environmental Technology, Koroma, Tekpoma, Ogoni, and for these matters, and step down consideration for further legislative action. Leader, move for the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. My respected colleagues, I rise to move that the report of the Committee of the Whole be adopted. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I so respectfully move.
Deputy Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion as ably moved by the Leader of the House. Mr. Speaker, I so second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Against say nay. That's have it. Leader, move for the adjournment of the House.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Well, I thank honorable members for being patient with us throughout the business of today's session. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, as leader of the 9th House of Representatives, I hereby move that this House do adjourn till Tuesday, the 21st day of June 2022 by 11 a.m. Mr. Speaker.
You want to go back to 2021?
No problem. No going back. Forward ever. Yes. Thank you, sir. I so move.
Thank you very much. Goni? They are processing your papers. Okay, you're welcome. Second.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. My name is Honorable Gideon Goni. I represent Kaura Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion that the House do adjourn as moved by the leader of the House next week. And so second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Against say nay. That's have it. On to Tuesday next week, 11 a.m.